live stream. Are we live? Hello. Hello. Awesome. Well, hello everybody. We're this is the first of these live streams where it's just kind of a relaxed time. I'm going to be just hanging out and working on some design, at least for this one. We're going to work on a 250 part, actually. And also just hang out and say hello to folks. And there are already some people. There are already people here. This is great. There's My Lost Interest. Says, let's go. All right, we'll get that underway. And Andrew Felix says hello. Hello, Andrew. I'm really excited to... Jeep Man Dan's here. Hello. Hey, Jeep Man Dan. Excited to have you all here and hang out. If you have a beverage, let us know what you're sipping on. I actually forgot the beverage part, but...
I can get you one.
Maybe I'll make some coffee. We'll do some coffee. Yeah. We'll make some coffee here. Oh, there's Mark Swag, Eric Roseberry. Hello. How are you all doing on this Sunday evening? It's snowed over the weekend here, and again, every weekend it's snowed since like this month. So there's snow on the ground this morning, but it's mostly melted off. But kind of a lazy weekend, and this is a nice kind of culmination to that. It's also, we were thinking about this. I was like, this would be a great time to actually get some design work done. Nobody in the shop. I can just hang out and literally hang out with Janus owners and interested people while I'm doing it. So we got watching our grandson. Mark is watching his grandson there. Awesome. And My Lost Interest is drinking a Stony FML IPA. Nice. Oh, Jeep Man Dan's drinking a Two-Hearted. That's my personal favorite. I love a Two-Hearted. So maybe I'll make some coffee. And that way I can hang out with y'all. Let's see. We'll do that. It'll get loud here with the grinder, but anyway, I've got up on the screen here an actual picture of a 450 fork, and what we're actually going to be doing is working on Mark. Thank you very much, Mark. Stephen Galarza, JM184. Stephen, remind me, is that a 250 or a 450? I'm thinking it's got to be a 250. We're not actually up that high yet on 450s, so it's got to be a 250. We're close, actually. I think I did last week. I was inspecting chassis compartment. I do all the 450 inspections, and I did a part in the 170s. So that's where we are right now. Stephen Gallart says 450, so it must be on the way. My Lost Interest. Really wish I could have known about Janus when I bought my Triumph Bonneville T120 3 years ago. Wish you could take bikes on trade. Oh man, I wish we could too. We've talked a lot about it. It really would make sense for us to be able to offer used Janus bikes. However, the cost, the capital involved in maintaining that kind of additional inventory right now we can't do. But that would be really cool. And we definitely, actually, last weekend we were meeting, talking through some strategies, and that would be something we would love to be able to do, is have Morgan Cars, I think, does that, where there's a section on the site where you go up and say, hey, these are used Morgans you can have, and they've been factory refurbished, etc. So yeah. So anyway, the part that we're going to be working on is actually, we're looking at a 450 here on the screen. The part we're working on is for a 250, but the reason I have a 450 up is that when we redesigned the front suspension for the 250 and the 450 is almost identical. The only difference is it's a little wider to allow for the bigger tires and bigger wheels and fenders, etc. But when we redesigned it, the other difference is that we make it rather than our fabrication shop or our external vendor in the inner world, the Amish shop, making it. We actually make the 450 ones. But one of the differences when we went to design it is we wanted to add an internal spacer to the pivot. And we'll actually get into a little more detail of what that means, but basically what that means is that rather than torquing it to a specific tightness for it to maintain the right looseness, so you want basically you have to tighten the 251 to a certain point, and if you over tighten it, it'll lock up the front swing arm on the forks, and it's just less controllable that way. We've always made them that way, but on the 450 we decided to put an internal spacer, so just like a wheel basically, so that when you clamp down on the on that pivot, you can clamp all the way down, and it's got machine tolerances in it so that it'll never, you clamp it to a given torque and then it will still move freely. So we're actually going to update the 250 fork assembly to match the 451. So maybe I can actually show you all. Here we go. So this is the design software we use. It's called Onshape, and as you can see here, Mark says that's a quality detail. As you can see, it's a browser-based program, which is kind of, it took me a while to kind of trust that this was a legit program when we first started using it, because there is no program that you download on your computer. It just runs in your browser, like if you run Safari, if you're a Mac user, or if you use Internet Explorer, or like me, you use Brave. It just runs right in there, and all the files are saved directly in the cloud. So that took some getting used to, but it's nice because it's really fast. As long as you have an internet connection, even if you don't have a great internet connection, it'll work pretty well. And we've been using it for, I think, at least 5 or 6 years now. A lot of 250 parts, and all the 450 was designed in this, and it's a 3D design software. It actually models, it acts as though what you're working with is actually a piece of steel or a piece of brass or whatever material you're using, and you can put bends in it like you see here. Let's close this window. Like you see here on the fork, this is the upper shock mount. You can see there's a bend in it. If I were to open up this piece, let's actually do that. Open linked document, it'll take me directly to the part number, and there it is, all bent and ready to go. And also, if you go down here, it has a design print. It does take a little bit to open them, but that's true of a regular browser or a desktop-based program as well. You can see here, this is the print for that part. It's got the degree of the break in it. It's got all the different details that the fabricator will need to be able to make that part. So it's extremely versatile, very handy, and it allows us to do all this design work with. Well, it started off with just me doing all the design work and engineering for all the bikes, and now, of course, we have the great Charlie Hanson-Reed, motorcyclist extraordinaire, who is actually he's a trained engineer and is very quick in it. It did take him a little bit of time to get used to it. He's used to SolidWorks, which is kind of like the industry standard, and this when we first started using Onshape, it was a lot less expensive, and it fit our uses a lot better. Interestingly enough, we're actually going to be going to the Onshape LiveWorks 23 conference in May, and I'll be presenting on how we use the Onshape, especially on our 450 model. So we'll have a 450 there. I'll be giving a talk on how Janus Motorcycles uses Onshape. So they're kind of Onshape thinks it's cool that we're doing what we do with their product as well. So anyway, well, let's get started here and dig in. So we'll take a look at the actual part we're looking at is this part down here. This is, hold on, let's see. My Lost Interest says, looks similar to SolidWorks. Yes, actually the founders of Onshape were SolidWorks founders as well. So they kind of took what they liked about SolidWorks, what they didn't like, and created a new platform for it. So it's pretty cool. Straw Dog says, hello all, 769 here from New Hampshire. Very good. Where are you from, Straw Dog? I recognize that name from the forums. Where are you in New Hampshire? I went to school up there, so I know it a little bit. And Mark says, when you have a moment, do you think the shocks used on the 250 are too stiff? We have had that, people say that before, and for me, I like the way they handle, but I need to check. We just got a new batch of shocks in from Jeff Lowe at Icon, and I asked for a softer set, so just to kind of mess around with. So let's see if he got those to us, and we'll mess around with them potentially in the future. I will not make any promises. I get myself in trouble when I do that, but we could eventually offer a softer front spring. I know some owners have reached out to Jeff directly and been able to do that. Straw Dog says, Seacoast, Hampton. I have been there. We went go swimming out there. My Lost Interest says, will this new design retrofit to existing 250s? Not without a new fork vertical. It would be difficult to do. And I mean, 68 doesn't have it. It's just the benefit of it is that you don't have to adjust by feel, kind of how tight it's going to be. You can just crank down on it. It's just more of a kind of an idiot-proof design. But yeah, it will probably not be retrofittable without a new fork. Jeff Carone says, I'm here too. Halcyon 761. Hey Jeff, how's it going? Good to see you down in Florida. St. Pete, I think, Florida. Yeah, the new shocks, if we do, it would just be a spring, so it would not look any different. I mean, maybe marginally thinner looking springs, but anyway. Okay, I'm going to start getting some work done on these. So this is the what we call the fork pivot slug at the bottom of the fork leg, and that is the part that we're going to modify. And you're going to have to bear with me. I haven't done this before. I mean, I've done a lot of design, but I haven't done a live stream of this, so bear with me as I try and figure out how to do this quickly and in a way that's interesting to other people. So let's see what we got. We're going to close that one out. Key switch bracket. Oh, oil drain spout. So let's go take a look actually out here at the 251. So we want to actually use the 250 pivot, or the 450 pivot. Fork pivot. Sometimes I just do a search and see if I can find it. 450 fork. I have not memorized all the part numbers. All right. Well, let's just open this part up and see where we go. So I can go right in the model. This is an assembly. I can open the linked document and open up the 250 fork pivot slug. There it is, and you can actually see it with it's in a referenced assembly, which means that it's referencing an assembly in a different document, and you can actually design this part based on another part. It's pretty cool. It can get a little complicated if you're in like multiply referenced, kind of like you're in a Inception movie where you're a dream within a dream within a dream, but it is a very powerful tool to be able to design a complex part off of another part, and you can predict, you don't even predict, you know exactly where interferences are, etc. So we're actually going to turn that off and just see the part pivot slug. So there's the 251. So this is the part that we're going to be replacing with the 451. And that's what we need to do right now is I need to find the 450. 450 fork vertical with an R. There it is. So now we're going to take, here's the 451. You can see it's a little wider. And there's the part. And I don't know if you can actually tell, but you can see how much bigger the hole here is. That's because it needs to be larger to accept that internal spacer. Oh, we got tons of chat going on here. Let's see. Jeff, he's in Tampa. And we got Keith, 706 from Binghamton, New York. So we will open this one. And there's the part number. So if I just grab that part number, then we'll go back over to the 250. And we can make this real easy if I just replace the, let's see if I can do that. Replace instance. So over here, you're seeing the actual, like, as it's made, and then on this, over on the far left of your screen, or my screen actually, you can see the part listed. And so I can actually, if I open that up a little bit more, you can see fork, pivot, slug, and I can go in here and see if I can replace instances. So 250 fork, pivot, slug, and I can go in here and look up other documents, insert that part number, boom, there's the 451. In case, so anyway, basically 6100 part numbers are 250 parts and 6300 part numbers are 450, so I can automatically know that that's a 450 part right there. So open up that guy, and in this case I want to revise an actual revision. I could create a version, and that would be like the most recent part from that file, but instead I'm going to select, okay, we're on Rev D. That little black triangle means it's a revision. So I'm going to go with Rev D, which is the most recent revision, meaning it's the most up-to-date version of that part, basically. And there you have it. So I hit the green check mark, and you can see between these two, one of the apertures, the orifices, is larger than the other. And that's to accept. And maybe what we can do is actually do a quick peek at the 451 and explain why it is the way it is. It may take me a minute to open it up, but I think that'll be helpful. We'll see if this is a big model. This is the big 450 model on it. It's got a lot going on, so it may take a minute, but we can actually cut a section and you can show you exactly what the spacer does. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and replace this one. So where I can, there it is. I actually don't get in here and do as much design as I used to, so it takes me a minute to find these things. I'm not doing it every day anymore. Here's a Rev D. Make sure we get the revision. And that one's updated. So basically, a little more information. These are the part that's orange right now. That's the tube. It's a hollow tube. And then this machine part that looks like this just gets inserted up in there. And the reason it has a chamfer, which is that angled part, is to allow the weld to get full penetration, so that we make sure that we have a good, solid connection between that slug and the fork. You wouldn't want that to break. My Lost Interest says, so the spacer is a bushing. The spacer is actually rides. That's what we're going to see in a second. It rides inside the bushing. So hold on here. We'll go to the model. I'll show you exactly what it does. So there's bushings and a spacer and then the axle. See you, Jordan. Jordan was here to make sure that all the technology worked, but here he is.
Hi, everybody. What's true?
See you, Jordan. And of course, it's going to take more time to load, but yeah, it's basically it allows everything to be clamped down and pinched without binding. And I will show you right now. So here you have, this is the big model. This is where Charlie and I did a massive amount of work when we were developing the 450 from scratch. This is the model where it all happened, and we spent many hours, thousands of hours in this model. But anyway, here you have the full assembly. So you, right down to how the brake rotor works. If we design like the speed over pickup, we can do it in here. It's so accurate that we can actually design like very tight tolerance parts off this. And that was a big reason why we wanted to design the whole bike in Onshape, is so we could have that ability on the 250. Since so much of it is designed literally on the shop floor, we don't really have a lot of that documentation of the different parts. And so when we launched the 450, we wanted to start from scratch, have everything documented. Now, since then, on the 250, we have been documenting everything, and we are developing the 3D digital models of it so that we can do this. But it's kind of, I mean, I love it. It's kind of a charming part of the 250 is that it was literally developed by hand in metal, in raw metal, on an Amish shop floor from scratch. And that's part of its story. It's a little different than the 450. Mark Zweig says, working on a Sunday evening. Now, this is entrepreneurship. Well, working, having fun, hanging out. We'll see. So anyway, let's cut a section. This is really cool. I remember when I was first using this, and I thought this was the coolest thing anyway. So we can go into something called section view. We'll pick, let's pick this guy here. We'll change the axis. See that? Check that out. 90 degrees, so we know it's perpendicular. We'll go, oops, I went the wrong way. So it actually cuts a section to the whole bike. We'll green that. And, looks like something broke in the model. Of course, when I show it to you, there's something wrong. But basically, let's let it catch up. All right, this is a little bit different. This one hasn't been updated. So all for naught. I showed you all this stuff. Oh no, here it is. That one hasn't. So we were experimenting with a fix on this side, and then on this side, this is the updated version. So let's take a peek at this. So what you're looking at here is the part that this part with the holes through it. That is the fork pivot, or that is the fork pivot bolt. Am I moving around too much? Hold on here. This is the fork pivot bolt. This whole part right here. And it goes all the way from one side to the other. And on one side it's threaded so that you can tighten it down. Now, outside of that is a spacer. And that's what you're seeing this area here. I don't know if you can see my mouse. But basically this area and this area, this is a section cutting right through the middle of it. That acts as a buffer between those two verticals on each side that you would get tightened down on. And then the yellow part is the brass bushing that it all pivots on. So those bushings get pressed in from each side. Then the spacer gets fit through the middle, and then the bolt gets put through. And the key to this whole thing is that the bushings, or the spacer, is slightly wider than the bushings, which means that no matter how tight you make it, it will never bind up, if that makes any sense. I guess this is harder to explain than I thought when I thought about doing this. But basically, if you're familiar with the way a wheel is built, here we go. Bat Mr. Bat says wee and Brent Johnson says, so like a bearing then. Yes, actually another name for a bushing is a plain bearing. So it's the simplest form of a bearing. And the interesting thing about bushings or plain bearings is that there's different places where a bushing or a bearing, like a thrust bearing or different kinds of bearings, are more appropriate. So if you're doing something like a wheel where it's spinning, like wheels are spinning thousands and thousands of times, a bearing like a roller bearing is the best application. It stays lubricated the best, especially a sealed bearing. It'll run for many thousands of miles that way. But if you have a place like a swing arm where it only is going like this, like it's a limited range of motion. If you were to use like a roller bearing or needle bearings, they would carve, over time, they can carve a little groove in their wearing surface. Even though a bearing race is hardened steel, if you run hardened steel and hardened steel in a limited path long enough, it'll actually wear a little groove and it'll get chunky in that, like it won't run smoothly. But on the other hand, if you use a plain bearing or a bushing, it's a smooth surface all the way around, so it doesn't care if you're only going a little bit of distance. The wear is perfectly evenly distributed around the whole thing. So I'm a firm believer in swing arms, whether they're for the normal rear swing arm or for the front on a Janus, and using a plain bearing in that application, because it actually will last longer, especially if, and I'll open it up here on the fork, if you have at the back a Zerk fitting. And this is a fitting that the model doesn't show it, but this is a threaded fitting, and a Zerk fitting will go in there, which allows you to add grease to that bearing. So you can hook up your grease gun to the back of that, pump a couple of squirts of grease in, and that it'll pump out any debris from inside there and add fresh grease. So that's one of the service items on both your 250 and 450 is you can re-lubricate it without taking it apart, which is really handy to have. Let's see. Brent Johnson, yeah, like a bearing. My Lost Interest says, got it. Excellent explanation. So I hope everybody, hey Grant's on. I hope everybody sort of understands that concept that it's, the 250 has bushings, but the bushings ride directly on the pivot bolt, or the axle, you could call it. And so if you tighten that axle up all the way, it'll lock up the whole assembly. Whereas if you have that internal spacer, it allows you to tighten down on it to a given torque, whatever we decide is safe, and it will always retain the right amount of freedom of movement to pivot easily. So what we're doing right now is updating the 250 to 450 spec. So just here you go. Here's the 450 one, different speedometer configuration than on the 250 one. Here's the 250 one right here with its little key off center key over there. Yeah. So anyway, we've got those done, and the next thing, there's a couple of more things that I want to do on this guy to actually have it be ready to release, and I'm not ready to do that yet. I need to meet with some folks and figure out what the best course of action is. There's more parts that need to be added in here, but we do have some other parts that I want to work on as well. So right now what we've done is, in the model, we've replaced those fork pivots. The next step would be to go to the assembly print and then update that. However, I'm not ready to do that on this part. So we're going to mosey on over to a different part, which is, Mark says, even 65 Ford Falcons and Mustangs didn't have Zerk fittings on their front ends. Yeah. Jeepman Dan says, you guys definitely put a lot of thought into this. We certainly do. We put a lot of thought into it. And it takes a long time because we're, unlike Ford of even in 1965 or putting on their Falcons or Mustangs, we don't have an entire couple of buildings of engineers working on this stuff. It's Charlie and me, and a lot of times I'm working on, as you know, videos or doing a lot of other stuff that goes into running Janus. Charlie's working on tooling, just making sure that our tooling, just maintaining the tooling. We're constantly having, like, hey, I'm doing an inspection and I'll notice that a part is slightly off. And then we have to realize, oh, this is because the tooling is wearing out on this part. We got to update that. So there's a lot of just maintenance in it too. So it does take us a while to get to these things. That's why I'm getting to this finally now, after we've had the 450 yet for quite a while. By the way, if you have any other questions on any of this stuff or anything else, that's what the point of this stream is. It's chill and hang out. I don't have to get all this stuff done, as you can tell. I can do that tomorrow. But I'm much more interested in just hanging out and here we go, having something to do with y'all. So this is the part I want to work on. The next part I want to work on, and this is the 450 engine oil drain spout assembly. So I'm not actually sure we've talked about this part yet to you all, but if you're familiar, but not that one. Here's a 450. If you're familiar with the 450, we did a video on the 450 oil change last spring. I think I did one. And one of the things that is just kind of unavoidable with certain designs, it's happened to BMW, it's happened to other brands, is that sometimes things don't come out where you want them to. And on the 450, right where the oil drain is right where the lower frame rail. So if you look on your on this picture I just put up, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but the oil drain is right down here on the side of the engine. And it just so happens to, if I'm looking over this way, it's because I'm looking either at the comments or at the my version of the screen, but it just so happens that that's where the oil drain is, and it drains directly onto the frame rail. And then if it drains on there, it can run down onto your exhaust, which neither of those things are we excited about making owners have to deal with. Actually the XR400 had the same problem, because on the XR400, you can't see it in this picture, but the front down tube is square, and they used that on the well, we can open up the model, can't we? Yeah, we can look at the model on the we'll turn the section view off. On the XR400, the bottom of this square tube here that I'm turning yellow right now, that was the oil tank, and there was a drain at the bottom, and it would drain all over stuff, which was not ideal. And then the BMW F650 has I think something similar where the oil tank's up here, and it would drain right onto the exhaust as well. And they never came out with a fix for it. There was a guy online, there still is a guy who makes a little drain spout for it. And that kind of gave me the idea to, as the factory, offer a solution to this that's elegant, that makes sense, that makes this really better than if it wasn't the case, let's just say. At least that's my take on it. Let's look at some comments here. Mark says, doing stuff right versus doing it the cheapest way. That's the goal. Well, yes, definitely on a Janus. That's what we try and do. Jeepman Dan, yes, I'm glad to see the oil change tool, drain tool in the works. Yes, the drain tool is not just in the works. I wish actually, do I have one? I have one. This is actually the prototype. I'll show you here. I don't know if you can see it there, but there it is. I cannot claim authorship of this. This was developed by our very own Woody Shoemaker, maintenance, delivery, repairman, motorcycle mechanic, philosopher, all in one. He developed this as a solution for this problem. And he actually made this prototype out of 450 frame material. So this is actually a piece of a 450 frame that he used. Very elegant, and it works extremely well because that's the side of the bike with the side stand. We did think that through at least. The oil drains on the side with the side stand, so you get all the oil out. And with this little piece, it drains out over the frame rail and over the exhaust and into whatever receptacle you're using. To make this work, though, this is just a little bit of information for you all, for you 450 owners, or if you're considering a 450. There's a piece of rubber, a rubber gasket that slips over the boss of the oil drain, and then this piece seals over that. It kind of like just perfectly fits. And the reason that I'm doing an update is that we've realized we've actually already shipped some of these to owners, and they've been complaining about the fact that it's very hard to get this onto the rubber piece. And so what we're going to do is we want to add a chamfer to the inside of this so that it'll slide over the rubber more easily. So just a little tiny change, but it's going to make everybody's life easier. And should make the part work even better. So everything takes a little bit of time to work out the kinks. A couple more. Oh, there's Gary. Let's see. Steven says, how's Charlie making it on the pavilion seat? Will it be ready by June for my June build? I can't speak to production bikes right now, but I do know that the first 4 production, like, I don't know if we're still calling them prototypes or not, we're back from powder coat. We've installed one on a bike. We're installing more on a couple of bikes, and we're putting in the order for a production order. I think the call, and don't hold me to this, I think the word is that we're going to take a pre-orders on those for folks. And I don't have a timeline off the top of my head. Multiple weeks to get through all the ordering it, fabricating it, all the different processes until it gets back to you. So we will have more information on that, and I will let the right people make that announcement. Jeepman Dan says, ditto Steven's question about the 450 luggage rack seat. When will pre-orders open up? I think very soon on the pre-orders. And then when we say when the pre-orders are, when we launch that, we will have a timeline for you. So lots of information there. Gary says, I have a prototype of the oil drain spout. It is a little too tight on the rubber. It just needs to be rotored out a little bit. Yes, that's exactly what we're doing today, Gary. So you got one that hadn't been. My apologies. Andrew says, ETA and price for the oil drain tool. ETA is we have them ready to go. We have a box of 250 of them. They just need to be ground out. We're gonna do it by, I think Tyler's, our service guy's gonna do it by hand on this batch. But the next 250, well, I guess we don't have to worry about too many of them. Will be done that way. We'll order them that way. But yes, they are ready to go, and I don't have a price, but we will have those listed on the site very soon, because we know that you all will need those. A lot of people are going to probably be doing an oil change this spring. Sorry for not knowing the price on that. Let's see. Gary says that should help a lot. I think, yeah, when they fit like this one, it's just, it works like a charm. In terms of getting that part on there, though, if your bike already has oil in it, we recommend draining the oil out with like a piece of plastic, like I show in the oil change video. I show using a piece of a water bottle to get it out. That way you can get the drain plug out. Then you put the rubber on, so the next oil change you can use the whole system. If you are ordering a bike now, though, if you haven't received your bike yet, we are installing them all that way from the factory. So a little bit of catch up there. RR says, I am Korean in Japan, your fan. That's awesome. Where are you from? Where are you in Japan, and where are you from in Korea? Very cool. RR. My Lost Interest says, is the oil drain angled down slightly so it doesn't collect water? Maybe it's not permanently attached. Yes. Good question. It is not permanently attached. You drain the oil, you take the plug off. Let's see, you can slide this on over where the plug is. Then you get your socket on there, you remove the drain, it drains out, and then you can just remove this and put it in your toolkit. So this is a removable piece. It does not stay on there. It does angle down, but only because the bike is angled over. So you wouldn't want to leave it on the bike. It would fall off. Or it could fall off. It's not quite that good of a seal. Andrew says, can't wait. Excited to take the rear rack on our trip this summer. Yes, that's awesome. I'm actually remembering I was supposed to put one on this weekend and test ride. So I'm going to be installing one, the foot pegs for a passenger, and probably taking one of my daughters out on a ride tomorrow, because we want to get, everybody's going to start test riding it around the shop, making sure that it feels good, and just so we can try and keep a little bit ahead of you all in terms of knowing how it goes. Obviously, Charlie's done extensive testing with it, but yeah, never hurts to have more people. And Gary says, any word on tool roll mount for the 450? We have not gotten that far. I haven't even thought about it yet. I mean, I've thought about it, but that's as far as I've gotten. So sorry, Gary. It does take forever to get these upgrades out. So anyway, let's dig into the oil drain spout. Gotta find it here. I'm gonna close these tabs so I don't get totally lost. And the nice thing is also with Onshape is you just close the tab and everything stays exactly where it was. There's full record of whoever made the change. So if Charlie gets there and messes up the whole model, or I do, which is actually usually what happens. You know exactly who did it because there's a record of who was in there. Okay, so this is the assembly. So we're gonna go in and we're gonna open the actual design part. Every part typically has the actual part number, and then it has an assembly number. The assembly is what we order it off of. It's a complicated system, but it works pretty well. So we're going to go to the main, which is like the most recent. It's the working version of the part, and I'm going to turn that origin point off. My lost interest. Got to go. Thanks for doing this. Thank you very much. Thanks for hanging out. That's awesome. Take it easy. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to add a chamfer, and there's actually a chamfer tool here. So instead of doing a fillet, we are going to actually do a chamfer. And we're going to add it right there. So there you see a giant chamfer, much too large. It's a 0.2 inch chamfer. Instead of doing, we're going to do an equal distance. We're going to do 0.05 and see how that looks good. Maybe even a little bit less. That looks pretty good to me. I think that'll really fit in there pretty well. So if you can't see this, so I added the chamfer. I'm gonna hit the green check button, and there you can see that we've added this chamfer to the inside. And over here on the left of the screen is the list of all the different functions how the part was designed. So you have the original sketch, which just in case you want to see what it looks like, that's how we start off. That's how this drawing started, was with the diameter, the ID, and the OD of this part. And then we went to an extrude function, which is where we pulled that sketch up to the length we wanted to go. Somebody added another plane, another sketch over on the side, so you can sort of see the shape of that part. There's the sketch, and then the next thing we did was we would have extruded through from that sketch to get the kind of little shape there, and then the last thing on the list is the chamfer. So there you have, that's pretty much, that was an easy design change, but the benefit of this is we're actually going to get to take this through to the print, and then actually we're going to update the assembly, and then it'll probably be enough for tonight with those little updates. So this is where it gets complicated. The actual design part is pretty easy, but then documenting it is the complicated part. So we're now going to go into like if you're familiar with CAD, computer aided drafting, you have model space and paper space. So we've just moved from the model space where we did that change over to paper space, this is literally what the print will look like that the vendor will get. So this little yellow thing up in the upper left side of your screen means I'm going to update the design. So now all of a sudden the chamfer is going to come through, but you can't see it because the way this drawing is shown does not show the chamfer. So what I think I'm going to do is actually get rid of this viewport, and I'm going to add a section so that we can show that it has a chamfer. So let's see if we can do, I gotta remind myself how to do this. Section view, horizontal. This is pretty cool, check it out. There's the section, and there you can now see, I'm zooming in on it, there is the chamfer. So that is nice. I'm going to go ahead and add a call out here. And that's going to say, what did I say that was? 0.3? I can't remember what size chamfer it was. 0.04. So we're going to say 0.04 chamfer. We need to do all caps for that. And I need to remember how to spell. And there you have it. And I'll move the this down. A lot of this is just making it look good. That's where the designer in me actually has the most fun, is making the prints look good. All right, so I'm moving it down because I'm wondering. No, take that back. We're going to go back a little bit. I don't need to move it that far down. What we're going to do now is we're going to, so it now has all the information. But what we've started doing, or what is good practice, is to ensure that the vendor, in this case our laser cutter, knows what we have changed on the print for the next. Because like sometimes they won't remember what the last version looked like, and maybe they're like, okay, we'll just do it the same way again. And they won't catch the fact that you've made a small change. So we're going to make a revision call out. So up here in this revision box at the top, I'm going to add added chamfer. And typically when you do any kind of design documentation, construction print, whatever you're going to call it, you want to relay the information as simply as possible, and you want to avoid redundancy or duplication. You want to say everything once. You need to say everything that you need to have said, because if you don't say it, it won't get done. But you don't want to say it twice, because if you do, it can lead to confusion. You want to say it once, and that way if you go back to add something, you don't forget to like update both places you said it, if that makes sense. So clarity of message is really important. And so if I've said 0.04 chamfer, I don't need up here in the revision to say 0.04. I'm just going to say added a chamfer and hit the green button. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, and the way that Onshape at least does it, I click on the revision and I'll add revision callout, and that's this little triangle here. And I'm just going to stick it right above that. And so right away, they're going to see that triangle with a little C, and that tells them so they can see revision. Okay, they added a chamfer. Where did they do it? Right there on that with that little triangle. So there's the chamfer. There's the update. And there we have it. Greg Davis says, Art in Motion, big fans of your bikes. Hope to own one someday. I hope you own one someday too, Greg. So there we go. There we have it. And now the next step, the fun part, is we get to release this. So I go down here, make sure everything's updated. So we're going to just take a quick look. You can see all the information is being relayed, I believe. You have the ID, the OD, the different sizes of everything, where the section cut is being cut. Maybe I'll move this guy up a little bit so that it's not being covered up. So I didn't call it the ID and OD on the print because down here at the bottom it says thickness finish. It says 1.25 14 gauge tube. That information has already been relayed there. So once again, I'm not going to say it twice, because if I do and I change something, I could have forgotten to update one of those, and then you'd have conflicting information on the print. And then if you got the part in and it wasn't right, there's no one to blame but yourself. So don't really want to do that. I'm just going to check this properties here. Yeah, we're good. Okay, we're going to release. So we go down here, that little item that says release. And then you can see right here, we're already on Rev B. We're moving over to Rev C. There's the part number. I'm going to go ahead and name it Rev C. And then I'm going to hit release. You wouldn't believe how many times I do that, and then I go, oh, I forgot to do something. You have to go and unrelease it. But there we go. My phone just binged, which means that it's been released. And then we go over to the revision history. I will select Rev C, and then I'll export it. And then I end up sending it to Jacqueline in purchasing, and she'll send that to the vendor. So there it gets exported, and we're good. But we're not quite done. We need to update the assembly print as well. So wait for that to go through. There it is. Save it to downloads. Okay. That is updated. We're good to go with that. However, we have an assembly print, and that needs to be updated as well. So you see up in the upper left corner, there's a little green twirly arrow, and there's also a little green triangle. I keep pointing with my finger thinking you can see it, but that little green triangle means there's a new revision that has not been added yet to the document. So this is very intentionally on Onshape's part a manual process that if you don't want to update the revision, you don't have to, and it doesn't do it automatically. You need to choose to do that. So in this case, I definitely want to choose to do that. You can see here it says revision B to C. So yes, I'm going to say update all, and you'll see it's going to add that chamfer. Yep. I don't know if you saw it. It just click. It just happened. So now we are up to date. All good to go. And we're going to go over from moving from model space to paper space. We are now in the paper space, and this print is much simpler. This is the part. This is if we order a part, we'll send both these. But this doesn't have to have all the information. All it says is rev. It's going to use a specific revision of this part number, and you need to look up the print for that. The vendor will have that as well. It has all that information. This allows us to, it's partly for reasons of purchasing and how we account for all the different parts. We can order them just by the assembly. I won't get into all the details of it, but it makes Jacqueline and the design life a lot simpler. So we're going to update, and you'll see the new part come through. So I don't know if you saw, but up here in this little that would be the bill of material box. It went up to Rev C right there. So it's calling it the correct revision now, and then the revision properties. I am going to add, and this is going to seem a little bit redundant, but added chamfer because they will not know otherwise, and it's not. It just gives them some kind of idea. What did they change on this? And there we have it. It's a raw finish. Its material is stainless steel, which is called it on the design print. And I think I'm good to go to release this. Just double check. Yeah, we're going to release. So this is going from Rev A to Rev B. It's only been changed once. Obviously, we did some changes early on in the design part before we even created an assembly. So I'm going to name it Rev B. We're going to release it. There goes the bing. Pull up Rev B. And I don't know if you noticed in the main, we'll go back to that. In the main dialog, it says in progress. There's a watermark across there. If I go to the actual revision now, that watermark is gone, and that means that it is ready to send to a vendor. So I'm going to go ahead and export this. Looks good. It's got all my information, when it was approved, who did it, and a lot of that stuff is automatic, which is pretty handy compared to the old way we used to do. When I used to do it by hand, everything was by hand, and then even in like AutoCAD, which doesn't have or at least the kind that we were using does not have a release management system. You had to manually say, oh, this is Rev B, and this is Rev C, and this is the date that I did it, all that stuff. This just makes it a lot faster. All right, exported. And that means that we are done with the design portion. So I think as far as the design stuff, that's enough for now. I'm going to, I think, do these on Sunday nights. It's kind of a fun time to hang out and not have a super formal salesy process. This is just, as I've said, and as you all have done a great job, just a relaxed time to hang out. So yeah, the next step from there would be that those parts are, I would email them to Jacqueline, and then she will probably print them off, and because this is going to be going to well, let's see, would this go to, I'm not even sure which vendor would be making this. It would either be our Amish fabrication shop or the one of our 2 laser cutting shops. So depending on if it was an Amish shop, the milkman, who's Ray, would hand deliver paper prints to them of this. Grant says QC. If it goes to, QC, he's saying QC Metal Fab. This is QC Metal Fab. Thank you, Grant. QC is a newer laser cutting shop that we use. And so they do not require it to be delivered by hand. Paper, it will be email. Modern technology. So I'll email it to Jacqueline, and when she's ready to put an order together, she will put together a PO, attach the prints, send that over, and then they will make that part for us. It'll probably be a while until this print is actually used, because we have 250 of these, which we'll be sending out to existing customers. If you're already a 450 owner, let us know. We'd love to get you one of these. This shouldn't, maybe we charge for postage or something like that, but this is something that you should have regardless. We want you to be able to drain your oil without getting it on your frame or your exhaust. So just get a hold of us, and we can help you out. But anyway, there's plenty of them, and they're stainless steel. They're a cool part, and check the website soon. We'll get those out and up available. I guess we are ready to kind of wrap up here. I have had fun. I hope you all have. And next week, I don't know what we're going to be designing or what we'll be talking about, but it'll be something fun, I'm sure. Feel free to stop in for a little bit, long time, the whole time, or just to say hey. So thanks so much, and I will catch you all, if not sooner, next Sunday. Thank you so much for hanging out. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.